Hey, BoLS fans, AdamHarry back again with another quick BoLS Retro Corner review. Today we are going to be taking a trip down memory lane through Apocalypse and Apocalypse Reload. This version of Apocalypse was initially introduced in circa 2007. It was towards the tail end of 4th edition. 2008 was when Apocalypse Reload came out, and that was actually for the tail end of 4th edition. This is the series that introduced us to the Plastic Stampa and Plastic Baneblade kit, and a ton of things that we see echo out through the rest of 40k, even into the modern era. So let's go ahead and dive on in. We're going to start with the big book of Apocalypse here, and this is an oversized book too, so it's pretty large. Had a lot of really cool double spread things here. This one's pretty well worn, much loved, as you can see. Crazy cool art spreads. Yeah, buddy. This brings back some memories. So, flipping through here, here's what was in the initial book. We had basically an introduction to what Apocalypse was, what fighting apocalyptic battles even look like. We had some example battles here. There's sprinkled throughout here. In this one, it was the Battle of Cold Steel Ridge. Then it goes into some tips on how to organizing a battle and running a game and things like that. But then we get into the different armies and battlefields of Apocalypse. It goes all the way through pretty much everybody at the time. Space Marines, objective markers. We get for all them different objectives and things like that. We get Tau Army, all their fun stuff, Xeno markings and all this. But it goes through pretty much everybody. Tyranids. There's an Orc Stompa Factory, all that fun stuff. Then we get into more of the apocalyptic forces, which is where we start seeing actual rules. This was more of an intro kind of hobby type thing. And then we get into all the different data sheets. And these are some classic things here. Apocalypse Reload was basically a bunch more data sheets to use in your games. And we'll go through all that. But you've got Imperial Guard, you've got Space Marines, Orcs, Eldar, Tyranids, Tau, Necrons, Dark Eldar, and then some Chaos Forces too. So it's pretty nuts. And then we also jump through another battle and the strategic assets and then the quick appendices there. So flipping through, just kind of an introduction to what is Apocalypse, which I like this because it kind of give you a guide. If you're playing less than 3,000 points, you're basically just playing a standard 40k game. If you wanted to go from 3,000 to 6,000, now you're getting into a standard Apocalypse size game. And this was going to take a little longer. This was usually with 1 to 2 players per side. Usually was going to take an evening of play versus the 1 to 3 hours for a typical 3,000 point game ish of 40k. Up from there, 6,000 to 15,000 points. This is a large APOC game. It was 2 to 4 players and probably take a whole day. And then finally, it jumped up to 16,000 points plus, and this goes on up from there. Multiple players, 3 or more players per side, may take a weekend, and they're not kidding. Having played in multiple Apocalypse games in this era, we had several games that jumped that size, and you definitely had to plan ahead. Moving on, this book also had things like legendary formations, and we'll get to all that stuff. There was different apocalyptic missions, and this kind of just was a quick rundown of how to do that. You set your army up, pick your teams, all that fun stuff. Set your time. That was a big thing too. They encourage to do timed games just because they're so massive. Moving on from there, just tips on picking your army. We're going to skip ahead. Strategic assets. This was fun. It was always nice to make cool objectives. This was one of the reasons that you would make cool objectives for your games, for APOC games. We're going to get to a quick battle here. It just shows you kind of an example, and then it's a nice cool fold out. They had a couple of these throughout the book, and it's a gorgeous shot of, well, let me just show you guys. One of the massive battles of Ultramarines versus Hive Fleet Behemoth. So a lot of really cool memories flipping through this book, let me tell you. Getting into organizing a battle, how to prepare in advance, that's kind of important. We get to some color and art spreads, and then through the armies of the battlefields. This just talks about the different forces you might see here. Here's a really rare example of a Mentor Legion Space Marines army, which you don't even see those guys anymore, but there you go. Different heroes and villains and how to use those. Cool strategic objectives if you wanted to, if you had a random Titan cockpit just laying around and wanted to use one of those, sure. Here's some more example armies, paint schemes and color schemes. This was important, especially at that level. You had so many models. It was kind of neat to do squadrons painted up similar with different markings and such to help keep track of everything. So Xenos markings, Orc markings, command vehicles. That was another big one. Modeling command vehicles. They had a sprue around this era that was just a command sprue essentially to upgrade your vehicles as the command vehicle. This is the Baneblade Super Heavy. Again, this was when we got introduced into the plastic Baneblade, which was kind of a big deal at the time. This was the first like mass-produced Super Heavy, I would say. That along with the Stampa kind of balanced things out. And you had different versions of this. I love this one was Commissar Yarrick's Fortress of Arrogance. Moving on from there, scratch bit models, data sheets, all that fun stuff. Different battlefields. Linked tables. This was a big thing for the gaming groups I played with. We liked to do the linked tables where you'd either have a U shape or some kind of table in between, like an I shape, something like that. It was pretty fun, pretty dynamic, and could be dangerous too for your models if you weren't careful. Playing on the floor, that's also not a bad idea. It wasn't a bad idea at the time if you just needed a ton of space. GW actually introduced these roads that you could use as well. That was a short-lived thing. Larger terrain pieces. I love the hobby tips here with the whole, take a coffee can and do stuff like that. So still use some of those things. Theme games, Exterminatus. That was just the world's gonna die. Everybody go crazy here. Quick battle. So apocalyptic forces. Here's we get into some actual rules, and we're gonna cover a lot of these fairly quickly. First up, gargantuan creatures, how they worked in the movement phase, assault phase, shooting phase. Again, pretty much you couldn't tar pit them. That was the big thing. They could move around, or they'd force people to move after the assault phase so that they could follow up and things like that. Kind of similar thing with the super heavy vehicles. They had their own stuff going on here. They had their own damage table. Catastrophic damage was awesome. If you could roll some sixes, which was always my game plan. If you could roll some sixes on the damage table to get some chain reactions going, and then hopefully roll that six for that apocalyptic explosion. And I'll tell you what, guys, there was nothing more fun than blowing up a super heavy with an apocalyptic explosion and watching everybody just start pulling models. That sounds odd because it's probably your models too, but it was just something satisfying. Everybody would cheer when that six was rolled and just a giant explosion happened. It was just a blast. Again, this was 4th edition too, so there weren't hull points introduced yet. There weren't. This kind of was the proto hull points. Thinking back now, but you didn't have hull points. You didn't have wounds on stuff, so you needed those sixes to blow things up. Of course, you had modifiers you could get too, but regardless, this also had flyer rules, which is where we ended up getting a lot of the updated flyer rules moving forward. But this is kind of where it came from. Again, because there were flyers. We also had all of the different templates. We had the apocalyptic templates. There's the massive 7-inch pie plate, massive blast marker. Then the apocalyptic blast marker, which was a just giant 10-inch pie plate. The Hellstorm template, which was just a flamer template on steroids. And the apocalyptic barrage template, which was made up of actually 5 of the 5-inch pie plates. So there was 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 in the middle there, and you would roll however many dice and do those barrages. It's pretty neat. This also included if you're running any Titan stuff, power fields, void shields, Titan close combat weapons, all that craziness. Most of this book from here on out is just data sheets, and this is all black and white. And I'm going to flip through some of these formations. We're going to go kind of quick again, but there's. Man, a crazy, if you wanted to go how to organize a regimental army group, there you go. We meet a lot of the Baneblades here. There's Baneblades, there's the Hellhammer, there's the Fortress of Arrogance. There's the original OG Hydra flat cannon with the Forge World resin bits that were a pain because they would warp. Emperor's Fist Tank Company. This was actually something GW sold. You could buy a box of 10 Lehman Russes, and that was a thing. The Emperor's Wrath Artillery Company. You might recognize also some of these names. They get recycled later on. Talon Recon Group, Ogre Noxzilla. Then we get to Space Marines, which was just a massive one. We had the OG Thunderhawk gunship clocking in at 900 points and was insane. The Armored Spearhead, which was 3 Land Raiders, was 50 points plus models. This is also when you would see the formations actually did cost points if you wanted to run these special formations initially. So that idea has been around for a long time. So maybe we'll see that again. I don't know. Again, don't mind the points now because everything's different. But back then, it's kind of crazy. Different chapter masters. Each one had a different ability too, which was really cool. Different strategic assets. Moving on, I'm going to go kind of quick through the rest of these. More Imperial stuff. We did have flyers and bombers. There's the Warlord Battle Titan. I got to show that one off, right? Which was massive, 2,500 points. This Warhound Scout Titan was 750 points of just pain and death and destruction. The bombers and fighters. Let me get to some Xenos. Here's the Stampa and the Big Mech Stampa. Again, plastic kits that were introduced in this time frame is when we started seeing these bad boys showing up too. Skullhammer Fortress. If you wanted to get a Baneblade and an Orca fight, there you go. Gargantuan Squigoth was nuts. Big old Cult of Speed. Again, been around for a long time. Dread Mob. Eldar. There you go. Revenant Titan. Cloud Strike Squadron. I actually had that. It was pretty sweet. Falcons, man. Nightwing Interceptor. All of these. Windrider Host. The Spirit Host. We'll get more of these here in Reloaded. That's why I'm trying to go quick. The Tyranids. Of course, they had the Hierophant Biotitan. Moving on. The Endless Swarm. Oh, man, I remember that one. Running that one was pretty nuts. It's a whole lot of gaunts. Tau. Of course, they got the Great Narlock pack. Good times. Oh, man. Rapid Insertion Force. Oh, the Necrons also had a couple. Literally. The Gauss Pylon and the Monolith Phalanx. They had this crazy triangle thing, which I'm not going to cover here, but I remember messing with that, fighting against it. Dark Eldar, we had the Splinter Raid Force and the Ravager Titan Hunters, so that they could have something to deal with those messy Titans. And of course, we've got Chaos running around. Tide Spawn, Warp Rift. And then there's the Slaughter at the Can Factory, which this is the last big thing we're going to show off. Just craziness. Xenos fight. I'd like to see GW recreate that one. Strategic assets, I'm going to blow through these real quick, but you gotta, if you look at these and compare them to the stratagems in modern 40k, you can kind of see where some of those ideas came from. Obviously, these are proto stratagems. You get these before the game, and then excuse me, you could divvy them up, and you didn't get as many as you would like command points or anything like that, but they perform different things. One of my favorite ones, where is it at? Orbital Bombardment was good. I think there was a Void Grenade in here somewhere, which was always nasty. Maybe that was in Reloaded. Anyway, we're going to stop with that one and flip over to Reloaded now. And again, massive book, oversized. This one was pretty much all data sheets all the time. There were some extra rules in here, but we'll get into those right now. I just kind of filled out. There's Did you want to run 3 Baneblades? Because there you go. The Stormlord Super Heavy. That was a variant of the Baneblade that you could get. Moving on, the Armored Fist Mechanized Company. That thing was nuts. Had some extra rules. Catechins. Ultramarines Honor Guard. I'd like to see that one come back. The Land Raider. The special this was the Maximus Land Raider, which was a custom Land Raider somebody at GW did, and I don't remember who did it, but it's used for a lot of the fancy shots for Land Raiders. The Terminus Ultra, if you look here closely, it had side sponsons that were actually las cannons as well as the twin link las cannon. So just this thing also had the Razorback top las cannon, so it was all las cannons all the time. Pretty cool stuff. Moving on here. Deathwing. We had a couple of other formations you could run. Deathwing Redemption Force. We get into some orcs. I believe this one. Does this one have the Green Tide? Gazgul's Bully Boys, Death Copted. There's the Green Tide. Yep. Man, that was one of the OG Green Tides. This was one of the units you could get like 300 models in if you really wanted to. All the craziness, the Orc Pulsar Rocket. The Phoenix Court of Cain was really cool. If you took all the Phoenix Lords and the Avatar, they got some crazy rules. Sunstorm, Great Court of the Young King, And then we get to more Tyranid stuff, the Genestealer Infestation, Kraken Tidal Swarm, Behemoth Crusher Brood, Eye of the Hive, which was really neat. This was just a whole lot of Tyranid Warriors. Living Fortress was pretty tough to break through. Farstrike Battlesuit Force, if you want to run those battlesuits, because everybody did. Stealth Suit Group was pretty nasty. And then this was actually funny. This was the Doomsday Monolith. That was actually a custom monolith one of the folks at GW had built. There's actually pictures of it in the previous book, but they went ahead and gave it rules and stuff like that for Necrons. We have the Khorne Tower of Skulls, which is pretty funny, which is a Baneblade chassis with more stuff on top. Doomfire Cannon, and just a tower. Then we have the Nurgle Plague Tower, which was pretty funny. I had a buddy that actually built this thing, because it was a kit bash from other things that GW had made, so it's pretty awesome. The Bikers, the Hounds of Huron, which Biker Squad. Moving on, again, there's Chaos Demons in here too. This was 2008, so there had been a couple of changes to the game in terms of armies and things like that at that point. More strategic assets, which we're not going to go over here, but I want to say, I wonder if the Void Cannon or the Void Grenade was in here, but I don't remember. I'm sorry, it's been a while. But there you go. Multi-table games, umpire games. I highly recommend, if you're going to do Apocalypse, to check out how to do umpire games. They make the games run a lot smoother. Things like that. Here's another example army lists for special missions. It's just like how to have fun with Apocalypse. It was bonkers. Apocalypse was a really fun expansion. We're going to be taking a look at more Apocalypse expansions through the ages as well on the Retro Corner here at BoLS. Come back and join us again. I'm AdamHarry. Thanks for watching. Click to subscribe. Check out more videos. And thanks for watching.